No, there should be another way. We will pay you your money, but please don't hurt my father.
Please. The gun didn't waver. Seraphina Cole stared down the barrel, her father's labored breathing the only sound in the sudden silence of their small cafe. Blood trickled from Marcus Cole's temple, where the man in the expensive suit had struck him moments before. 3 men surrounded them, cold, efficient, deadly, but none compared to the one seated at the corner table, watching the scene unfold with the detachment of someone observing an ant colony. Seo Joon-woo. Even his name was whispered like a curse in Seoul's underbelly. The Reaper, they called him, the man who'd inherited an empire built on fear and cemented his rule with calculated brutality. 28 years old and already a legend in Korea's criminal underworld. He hadn't moved since entering Cole's cafe 20 minutes ago, hadn't touched the coffee his bodyguard had ordered for him. He simply sat, immaculate in charcoal Givenchy, and waited for her father to produce money he didn't have. Please, Marcus begged, his Chicago accent thick with desperation. 1 more month, I swear I'll get it. The man holding the gun smiled. It wasn't kind. Seraphina's hands trembled as she gripped the counter. She'd known something was wrong. Her father's sleepless nights, the mysterious phone calls, the way he flinched every time the cafe door chimed. She'd asked. He'd lied. Said business was slow, said everything was fine. 10 million won wasn't fine. $15,000 wasn't fine. And the interest that had ballooned it to 40 million won, nearly $30,000, definitely wasn't fine. Time's up. The words came from the corner table, spoken in English so perfect it might have been beautiful under different circumstances. Joon-woo stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. He was tall for a Korean man, lean and elegant, moving with the grace of something predatory. Take him. No. Seraphina vaulted the counter before thought caught up with instinct. She landed between her father and the gun, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack through. The cafe's morning light streamed through the windows behind her, illuminating dust motes and the shocked faces of the few customers who'd been mid-order when the nightmare began. Wait, she gasped. Please wait. Joon-woo's eyes found hers for the first time. They were black, completely, utterly black. Not brown, not dark, black like the spaces between stars, like drowning, like the last thing you'd see before the world ended. Beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful, sharp, cold, designed to cut. Seraphina forgot how to breathe. Move aside, Miss Cole. His voice remained conversational, almost bored. That somehow made it worse. There has to be another way. There isn't. He glanced at his watch, Patek Philippe. She noticed absurdly, as if her father's life had a countdown timer. Your father borrowed money. He failed to repay it. This is business, not charity. Then let me repay it. The words tumbled out before courage could abandon her. However you want, whatever you need, just don't hurt him. The room went silent. Even the bodyguards looked surprised. Joon-woo's expression didn't change, but something shifted in those bottomless eyes. Interest, maybe, or hunger. Seraphina, no. Marcus grabbed her arm, but one of the guards blocked him effortlessly. How old are you? Joon-woo asked softly. 24. Do you understand what you're offering? She didn't, not really. But she knew her father was a good man who'd made one desperate mistake after her mother died. She knew if these men took him today, she'd never see him alive again. I understand. Joon-woo studied her with the intensity of someone examining a curious artifact. Seraphina stood frozen under that gaze, feeling dissected, catalogued, priced. She was acutely aware of her appearance, her dark skin that had drawn stares since they'd moved to Seoul 3 years ago, her natural curls pulled into a hasty bun, the coffee stains on her simple dress. She looked nothing like the pale, delicate women she'd seen photographed on his arm in society pages. But whatever he saw must have satisfied something. Your debt transfers to your daughter, he said, turning to Marcus. Effective immediately. Consider yourself fortunate, Mr. Cole. Few men inspire such loyalty. You can't do this. Marcus lunged forward, but the guards held him back easily. She's my daughter, take me instead. The transaction is complete. Joon-woo extended one hand toward Seraphina. You're coming with me, now. Now, Seraphina's voice cracked. I have to pack, I need to tell my roommate You offered yourself to clear a debt. Those black eyes pinned her in place. That means everything you are belongs to me. Your time, your presence, your body, all of it is mine. You don't need belongings where you're going. You need nothing but your compliance. The words hit like a physical blow. Seraphina looked back at her father one last time. He was crying, actually crying, trying desperately to reach her while the guards held him back. She'd never seen her father cry, not even at her mother's funeral. I love you, Dad, she whispered. Then she turned and walked toward Seo Joon-woo, toward the man who just bought her like property, toward a future she couldn't even begin to imagine. The car waiting outside was a black Mercedes S-Class with windows so dark she couldn't see inside. The door opened. Seraphina climbed in, her legs moving on autopilot. Joon-woo slid in beside her, his presence overwhelming in the enclosed space. The door closed. The world outside became muffled, distant, irrelevant. Where are we going? She managed. Home. He didn't look at her, his attention on his phone as his thumbs moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. You're home. Yes. Seoul blurred past the tinted windows. Familiar streets became foreign territory with each passing block. Seraphina had lived here for 3 years, learning the language, adapting to the culture, building a life. Suddenly it felt like a different planet entirely. What will you? She stopped, reconsidered. What do you expect from me? Now he looked at her. Everything. The word hung between them, heavy with implications she didn't want to examine. I meant what kind of work? I know what you meant. His lips curved slightly, the first real expression she'd seen from him. It wasn't reassuring. My answer remains the same. You offered yourself, Seraphina Cole. That means you exist for me now. Your time, your thoughts, your body, all mine to use as I please. Heat flooded her face. I'm not going to, you can't expect me to. I can expect anything I want. He cut her off calmly, matter-of-factly. You'll do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. That's the agreement. I agreed to work off the debt, not to become your. My what? Say it. The challenge in his voice made her jaw clench. Your plaything. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was worse than his cold indifference. You think too highly of yourself. I have women for that, professionals who know what they're doing. His eyes traveled over her slowly, assessingly. What you are is much more interesting. Collateral. A woman desperate enough to sell herself for family. I want to see how long that noble sacrifice lasts. Seraphina bit down hard on her response. Arguing wouldn't change anything. She'd made this choice. Whatever came next, she'd have to endure it. The car pulled into an underground garage. Security gates closed behind them with a finality that made her chest tighten. They rode an elevator in silence, 37 floors up. When the doors opened, Seraphina stepped into a penthouse that screamed wealth she'd never comprehend. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. Minimalist furniture in black and white. Art that probably cost more than her father's entire cafe. Everything was sharp angles and cold surfaces, beautiful in the way a frozen lake is beautiful, lovely to look at, deadly to touch. A woman appeared from a side hallway, middle-aged, stern-faced, wearing a crisp uniform. Mrs. Kim, this is Seraphina, Joon-woo said, already shrugging off his jacket. Show her to the guest room, make sure she has everything necessary. Of course, sir. He walked away without another word, disappearing into what looked like an office, phone already pressed to his ear. Just like that, she was dismissed. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment. A king-sized bed dominated the space, dressed in white silk that looked impossibly soft. The attached bathroom was all marble and chrome. A walk-in closet stood empty, waiting to be filled. Mr. Seo is working, Mrs. Kim said, her expression neutral. He doesn't like to be disturbed during business hours. Dinner is at 7. I suggest you rest until then. She left Seraphina alone in the vast, impersonal room. Seraphina sank onto the edge of the bed, her legs suddenly unsteady. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last hour was fading, leaving behind a hollow ache. She thought of her father, probably still at the cafe, blaming himself. She thought of her life, the small apartment she shared with 2 other girls, her part-time classes at Hongik University, her dreams of becoming a photographer, now completely demolished. And she thought of Joon-woo's words, "Your body is mine to use as I please." Later that evening, Mrs. Kim appeared to escort her to dinner. The dining room held a table that could seat 12. Only 2 places were set at opposite ends. Joon-woo was already seated, reading something on a tablet, barely acknowledging her entrance. "Sit." Seraphina took her seat, acutely aware of the distance between them. Staff brought out course after course, Korean fusion dishes she couldn't identify. Beautiful presentations she was too anxious to appreciate. She pushed food around her plate while Joon-woo ate with methodical efficiency, still focused on his work. Finally, he set down his tablet. "You're not eating." "I'm not hungry." "That wasn't a question about your appetite." His eyes lifted to hers. "Eat." Seraphina's jaw tightened. "I said." "And I said eat." His voice didn't rise, but something in it made her hand move automatically, lifting the fork to her mouth. The food was excellent. She barely tasted it. "There are rules you need to understand," he continued, as if discussing weather. "First, you do what I tell you when I tell you, no arguments." "I'm not a dog." "No, you're a woman who owes me 40 million won." He leaned back, wine glass dangling elegantly from his fingers. "Second, you're available when I want you, day or night. If I call, you come. If I want your presence, you give it." "Available for what?" His smile was slow, dangerous. "Whatever I decide." "You still haven't told me what kind of work you expect." "Because there is no work, Seraphina." He stood, moving around the table with that predatory grace. "You're not here to file papers or answer phones. You're here because you offered yourself to me and I accepted. What that means specifically, you'll learn soon enough." The implication crashed over her. "I won't be your..." "Won't you?" He was close now, too close, his presence overwhelming. "You walked into my world thinking sacrifice would be noble. Now you'll discover what sacrifice actually costs." His hand came up, fingers tracing her jawline with a gentleness that belied his words. Seraphina's breath caught. His touch was cool, clinical, assessing her like merchandise. "Third rule," he murmured. "Most important, you don't leave. You don't contact anyone from your old life. You exist here for me until I decide otherwise." His fingers tightened slightly on her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Break that rule and your father's debt returns, with interest, with consequences, understood." Seraphina wanted to pull away, to tell him exactly where he could shove his rules. But those black eyes held hers with an intensity that made her dizzy. "Yes." "Yes, what?" She swallowed hard. "Yes, I understand." "Good girl." He released her, stepping back. "Mrs. Kim will bring you something to wear tonight. I expect you in my room at midnight. Don't be late." He walked away, leaving Seraphina standing alone in the vast dining room, her entire body trembling with something she refused to name. The hours, until midnight, crawled by with agonizing slowness. Seraphina sat in the guest room, wearing the nightgown Mrs. Kim had delivered, silk the color of champagne, elegant and revealing in equal measure. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd never done this before, never been with anyone. There had been opportunities in college, boys who'd shown interest, but she'd always pulled back, waiting for something more than fumbling in the dark with strangers. And now her first time would be with a man who'd bought her, who saw her as property, who'd made it clear her wants, her feelings, her inexperience, none of it mattered. The clock read 11:58. Seraphina stood, her legs unsteady. She could refuse, lock the door, climb into bed and pretend she'd fallen asleep. But then what? He'd made the consequences clear. Her father would suffer. She walked through the silent penthouse, her bare feet soundless on marble floors. His bedroom door was open, light spilling into the hallway. Joon-woo sat on the edge of his bed, still dressed in black slacks and a white shirt, the top buttons undone. He looked up as she appeared in the doorway. "Come here." Seraphina forced herself forward, crossing into his territory. He didn't move, just watched her approach with those fathomless eyes. When she stood in front of him, he reached out, his hand catching hers. His thumb traced her racing pulse. "You're terrified." "I'm fine." "Liar," his grip tightened slightly. "Your body betrays you." "What do you expect?" The words came out sharper than intended. "You bought me like furniture. Now you want me to pretend I'm not afraid." "I don't want you to pretend anything." He pulled her closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, subtle, intoxicating. "Fear is honest. I prefer it to false bravery." "Then why am I here?" "Because I want you here." His free hand found her waist. "Because you belong to me now, and I can do whatever I want with you." "So do it." The challenge escaped before she could stop it. "That's what you brought me here for, isn't it?" Something flickered in his expression. Interest, maybe, or amusement. "You think you know what I want." "You made it clear enough." "Did I?" He studied her face with unsettling intensity. "Tell me, Seraphina, have you ever been touched by a man?" Heat flooded her face. "That's none of your—" "Everything about you is my business now." His hand moved from her waist to her hip, possessive. "Answer the question." "No," the admission felt like surrender. "I haven't." His eyes darkened with something predatory. "No one." "No one." "Why?" Seraphina tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Because I was waiting. It doesn't matter. You don't care anyway." "You're right." His touch gentled slightly, contradicting his words. "I don't care about your romantic notions." He paused, his thumb tracing circles on her hip through the silk. "But I do care about this. You're a virgin." It wasn't a question. Seraphina nodded anyway, her throat tight. Joon-woo was silent for a long moment. Then he released her, standing and turning away. "Get out." Seraphina blinked. "What?" "Leave. Go back to your room." Confusion warred with relief. "I don't understand. You said." "I know what I said." His voice was clipped, controlled. "And now I'm telling you to leave." "But why?" He looked at her over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. "What I want is complicated. What you're ready for is not. Go." Seraphina scrambled toward the door, her emotions a tangled mess. Relief that he wasn't forcing her. Confusion about why he'd stopped. And underneath it all, something uncomfortably close to disappointment. She was at the threshold when his voice stopped her. "Seraphina." She turned back. "Don't misunderstand," he said quietly. "This is mercy. I'm not letting you go. I'm simply choosing when and how to take what's mine." His eyes held hers, dark and intent. "When I do claim you, it will be because you're begging me for it, not because I commanded it." The words sent heat spiraling through her, unwelcome and confusing. "That will never happen." His smile was slow, confident, cruel. "We'll see." The next 3 days were torture of a different kind. Joon-woo ignored her completely. He left early, returned late, took his meals in his office. When they did cross paths in the penthouse, he looked through her as if she were invisible. Seraphina told herself she was grateful for the distance. She explored the penthouse during the day, discovered a library filled with books in multiple languages, found a gym she used to burn off restless energy. But at night, alone in the guest room, she couldn't stop thinking about him. About the way he'd touched her, assessed her, then sent her away. About what he'd said. "When I do claim you, it will be because you're begging me for it." She couldn't. Except some traitorous part of her wondered what it would feel like if she did. On the 4th night, everything changed. Seraphina was reading in the library when she heard voices from the living room. Female laughter. High, confident, familiar in a way that made her stomach clench. She told herself to stay hidden. It wasn't her business. But curiosity, and something uglier, drove her to the doorway. A woman stood with Joon-woo near the windows. She was stunning. Model tall, wearing a red dress that hugged every curve, long black hair falling in perfect waves down her back. She touched his arm familiarly, leaning close to whisper something that made the corner of his lips lift. Seraphina had never seen him smile, not genuinely. "You're terrible," the woman purred in Korean, her hand sliding up his chest. "Should we skip dinner? I can think of better ways to spend the evening." "Patience, Jaewon," but Joon-woo's hand found her waist, pulling her closer. Seraphina should leave, should retreat and pretend she hadn't seen this. Instead, she stood frozen, watching as Jaewon pressed against him, as her hand moved to his jaw as she kissed him slowly, deliberately. And Joon-woo let her. Something cracked inside Seraphina's chest. Jealousy, raw and unexpected, flooded through her. She had no right to it. He owed her nothing. She was just payment for a debt, temporary and disposable. But watching him touch another woman, kiss another woman, after he'd made her feel so exposed and vulnerable in his bedroom, it hurt in ways she didn't want to examine. She must have made a sound, because Joon-woo's eyes opened. Over Jaewon's shoulder, his gaze found Seraphina's. He didn't pull away, didn't stop. He held Seraphina's stare while Jaewon kissed his neck, his jaw, his mouth again, his expression completely unreadable. Seraphina turned and fled, her body shaking with an emotion she refused to name. Behind her, she heard Jaewon's laughter, bright and victorious. She made it to her room before the anger consumed her, locked the door, slid down against it. Not because she loved him, she couldn't love someone like him, but because for a moment in his bedroom she'd felt something. Connection, maybe, possibility. And he'd just shown her exactly how foolish that was. The night stretched endlessly. Seraphina heard them in his room. The walls were too thick for actual sounds, but she knew. Her imagination filled in the rest, torturing her with images she couldn't escape. When dawn finally broke, Seraphina made a decision. She would survive this. She would endure whatever came. But she would never, ever let Seo Joon-woo see her cry again. And she would certainly never beg him for anything. The pattern continued for 2 weeks. Different women, different nights, but always the same message. Seraphina learned their routines. Jaewon on Tuesdays and Fridays. An actress named Hee-rin on Wednesdays. Others whose names she didn't bother learning. They arrived in expensive cars, left in the early morning hours, treated Seraphina like furniture when they encountered her. Joon-woo barely acknowledged her existence. They ate meals in silence when he bothered to show up. He walked past her in hallways as if she were invisible. And every night, Seraphina lay in her bed, listening to sounds that drifted through walls, hatting herself for the jealousy that twisted in her gut. She was nothing to him, just a debt paid, a possession stored away until he decided what to do with her. On the 15th day, Seraphina made another decision. She couldn't live like this, existing in limbo, invisible and unwanted. If she was going to survive, she needed to reclaim some piece of herself. Even if it meant confronting the man who owned her. She found him in his office late one evening, working at his desk. The glow from his computer screen cast shadows across his face. "I didn't call for you," he said without looking up. "I don't care." Now his eyes lifted, surprise flickering across his features before settling back into that cold mask. "Excuse me." Seraphina stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. Her hands trembled, but she clenched them into fists. "You said I belong to you, that you own every moment of my time, every aspect of my life." She moved closer to his desk. "Fine, but I refuse to be invisible." "You're not invisible." "Really?" She laughed, the sound bitter. "When's the last time you looked at me, actually looked at me, not through me?" Joon-woo leaned back in his chair, studying her with that unreadable expression. "And this bothers you?" "Yes, it bothers me." The words came faster now, anger giving her courage. "You brought me here, made me some kind of prisoner, and then you ignore me. You parade your women through here night after night while I'm supposed to what? Sit quietly and be grateful you haven't thrown me out." "I could do worse than ignore you, Seraphina." "Then do worse." She slammed her hands on his desk, leaning forward. Do something, anything, because this half-existence where I'm neither free nor claimed, it's killing me. Something shifted in his expression. Interest, maybe, or danger. Careful what you ask for. I'm not asking for anything except honesty. Seraphina's voice cracked despite her best efforts. What am I doing here? If you don't want me, if I mean nothing to you, then let me go. Release the debt. I'll find another way to protect my father. There is no other way. Then tell me what you want from me. Her voice rose. Because right now, I don't understand any of this. You said you wanted me. You made me feel. She stopped, swallowing hard. And then you've spent 2 weeks showing me exactly how little I matter. Joon-woo stood slowly, rounding the desk with that predatory grace. You think you don't matter to me. I think I'm convenient. Property you haven't decided how to use yet. He was close now, too close, but Seraphina refused to back down. You want honesty. His hand came up, fingers catching her chin, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. Every woman I brought here was a test. Seraphina jerked away from his touch. That's sick. I never claimed to be anything else. He followed her movement, backing her against the wall. I wanted to see how long it would take for you to break, for that careful composure to crack. I wanted to know if you'd stay indifferent or if something would shift, if you'd keep pretending you felt nothing. Why would you care what I feel? Because taking a woman who's terrified and unwilling holds no interest for me. His smile was dark, dangerous. But taking one who's desperate for me despite herself, that's infinitely more satisfying. Heat and anger warred in Seraphina's chest. You're manipulating me. Yes. You're trying to break me down until you want me, yes. He pressed closer, his hand finding the wall beside her head, caging her in. Why does it matter? Because when I finally claim you, Seraphina, his voice dropped lower, I want you begging for it. I want every wall you've built around yourself completely demolished. I want you so desperate for my touch that pride means nothing. Seraphina's breath came faster, her body responding even as her mind screamed at her to feel nothing. And if I never give you that? You will. His certainty was infuriating. You already are. I can see it in the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way jealousy flashes in your eyes when another woman touches me. The way you're trembling right now, not from fear, but from wanting something you've told yourself you shouldn't have. I don't want you. Liar. His free hand found her waist, pulling her against him. Your body betrays you every time. Seraphina tried to push him away, but her hands lacked conviction. I hate you. Good. His mouth hovered near her ear, his breath warm against her skin. Hate me, but admit you want me too. Stop pretending. Stop fighting what you feel. Why should I give you anything? Her voice shook. You've given me nothing but cruelty and indifference. Because despite everything, you can't stop thinking about me. His hand moved up her side, achingly slow. Can't stop wondering what it would feel like if I touched you the way I touched them. Can't stop imagining yourself in my bed instead of alone in yours. Seraphina squeezed her eyes shut, hatting how right he was. Hatting herself for wanting him when he'd done nothing to deserve it. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair, Seraphina. You learned that the moment your father gambled away money he couldn't repay. His hand moved higher, tracing her ribs through her thin shirt. But I'm offering you a choice now. Stop fighting this. Stop pretending you don't want me. And if I do, she forced herself to meet his eyes. If I admit it, what changes? Everything. The word was a promise and a threat. Tell me what you want, Seraphina. Say it out loud. Pride warred with desire, with the loneliness of the past 2 weeks, with the need to feel something other than invisible. I want you to see me. I see you. No, her hands came up, pressing against his chest. You see a possession, something you own. I want you to want me, not because I'm convenient or available or payment for a debt, but because you can't help yourself. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. You think I can help myself around you, that ignoring you has been easy. His hand tangled in her curls, forcing her to hold his gaze. I've thought of nothing but you for weeks. Every woman I brought here was a poor substitute for the one I actually wanted. But I refused to take you until you admitted you wanted it too. Why? Because I'm selfish and cruel, and I wanted you to suffer the way I've been suffering. He leaned closer, his lips almost touching hers. Wanting something you've told yourself you can't have, aching for someone who should mean nothing to you. Seraphina's resolve crumbled. I want you. The admission felt like surrender. I hate that I do, but I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting. What? His grip tightened in her hair. Say it. I want you to touch me, to make me forget everything except this moment. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I want you to want me the way I want you, desperately, completely. Are you begging me, Seraphina? She should say no, should maintain some shred of dignity, but she was so tired of fighting herself, of pretending, of being invisible. Yes, the word came out broken. Yes, I'm begging you, Joon-woo. His control shattered. He kissed her with a hunger that stole her breath, backing her harder against the wall, his body pressing against hers. Seraphina's hands clutched at his shoulders, pulling him closer, finally feeling seen. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. My room, he said roughly. Now. He didn't wait for her response, simply took her hand and pulled her out of the office, down the hallway. Seraphina's heart raced with anticipation and fear, and something that felt dangerously close to hope. The bedroom door closed behind them, with a finality that should have terrified her. Instead, Seraphina felt only relief. Relief that the waiting was over, that she'd finally stopped fighting what she wanted. Joon-woo turned to face her, his hands framing her face with surprising gentleness. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. Then tell me again, what do you want? Seraphina met his eyes, her voice steady despite the trembling in her limbs. I want you to make me yours, completely, the way you promised weeks ago. His smile was predatory, possessive, and entirely satisfied. Then that's exactly what I'm going to do. He kissed her again, slower this time, unhurried, as if he had nowhere else to be. His hands traced her body with deliberate intent, learning her reactions, drawing soft gasps from her lips until her knees felt weak and her breath came uneven. When he finally eased her out of her clothes, she didn't feel exposed. She felt chosen. The night blurred together, the world narrowing until it was just the two of them. Joon-woo was patient in his possession, taking his time, pushing her to feel things she'd never allowed herself to feel before. He didn't rush, he didn't force, he simply waited for her complete surrender. If you're loving this story so far, hit that like button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. When morning finally came, Seraphina lay in Joon-woo's arms, her body pleasantly aching, her mind quiet for the first time in weeks. She'd given him everything, her innocence, her pride, her carefully guarded heart. And tomorrow, she'd probably regret it. But in this moment, feeling his heartbeat against her back, his arm heavy around her waist, Seraphina allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could become something more than possession. Something dangerously close to love. The bedroom door opened without warning. Seraphina tensed, but Joon-woo's grip tightened, keeping her in place. Mrs. Kim stood in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. Sir, Miss Jaewon is here. She's quite insistent about seeing you. Jaewon. The name sent cold reality, crashing over Seraphina's contentment. Joon-woo's jaw tightened. For a moment, one brief, hopeful moment, Seraphina thought he might tell Mrs. Kim to send her away. Instead, he released Seraphina, sitting up. Tell her I'll be out in a moment. Of course, sir. Mrs. Kim withdrew, closing the door softly. Seraphina pulled the sheet up, suddenly feeling exposed despite everything they'd just shared. You're going to see her. This isn't what you think. Isn't it? She climbed out of bed, gathering her clothes with shaking hands. You got what you wanted. I begged. I gave you everything. And now you're going back to her like nothing changed. Seraphina. She left before he could finish, before the tears burning in her eyes could fall where he might see them. In the hallway, she passed Jaewon. The woman's perfectly made-up face held a knowing smirk. "Rough night," she said in English, her accent thick but understandable. "Don't worry, darling, he always comes back to me." Seraphina didn't respond. She locked herself in the guest room, sliding down against the door, finally letting the tears come. She'd sold herself to save her father. But somehow, against every logical thought, she'd fallen for the man who bought her. And now she was paying a price far higher than 40 million won. She was paying with her heart. The next morning, Seraphina woke to find a note slipped under her door. "Penthouse rooftop, noon, don't be late, Jay." She almost didn't go. Pride demanded she ignore it, make him come find her, make him work for her attention the way she'd worked for his. But curiosity, and that traitorous hope, drove her to the elevator at 11:55. The rooftop was a private garden she hadn't known existed. Trees and flowers created an oasis 37 floors above Seoul. A small table was set for two, food already laid out. Joon-woo stood at the railing, looking out over the city. He turned when he heard the elevator doors. "You came." "You summoned," Seraphina said coldly. "Isn't that how this works?" He flinched, actually flinched, and something about that tiny crack in his composure made her anger waver. "Sit, please." She did, more because her legs felt unsteady than because he asked. Joon-woo sat across from her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain, uncomfortable, almost human. "Jaewon is gone," he said finally. "I sent her away, told her not to come back." Seraphina's heart stuttered, but she kept her face neutral. "Why?" "Because you were right." He leaned forward, his eyes finding hers. "What happened between us, it changed something. I can't pretend it didn't." "So what?" Bitterness leaked into her voice. "I'm upgraded from invisible possession to exclusive possession." "No." His hand reached across the table, palm up, waiting. "You're upgraded to something I didn't think I was capable of wanting." "Which is?" "Someone who matters." The words hung between them, fragile and terrifying. Seraphina stared at his outstretched hand, not taking it. Not yet. "You hurt me," she whispered. "You spent 2 weeks making me feel worthless, then you made me beg for you, and then you went straight to another woman. How am I supposed to believe anything you say now?" "You're not." Joon-woo's voice was quiet, raw in a way she'd never heard. "I don't deserve your trust, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to earn both." "Why? Why does it matter?" "Because somewhere between buying you and breaking you, I fell for you." He stood, moving around the table, kneeling beside her chair so they were eye level. "And I don't know how to do this, how to want someone without owning them, how to care without controlling. But I want to learn, if you'll let me." Seraphina's hands trembled in her lap. "You can't just buy someone and fall in love with them. That's not how it works." "I know." His hand came up, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that made her throat tight. "But I'm not asking you to love me back. I'm just asking you to give me a chance to be more than the monster who bought you." "What about my father's debt?" "Erased as of this morning." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, handing it to her. "The cafe is paid off. Your father is free, and so are you, Seraphina. You can leave right now. I'll have Mrs. Kim pack your things. I'll never contact you again." Seraphina unfolded the paper with shaking hands. It was a debt release form, signed and notarized. Legal proof that her father owed nothing. "I don't understand." "If you stay," Joon-woo continued, "it has to be because you choose to, not because you're bound by debt or obligation or fear, because you want to be here, with me." "And if I leave?" Pain flickered across his face. "Then I let you go." Seraphina looked at him, really looked at him, seeing past the cold beauty and cruel elegance to the man beneath. A man who'd spent his entire life controlling everything and everyone, now offering her complete freedom. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything." She should leave, should take this gift of freedom and run as far as she could from the man who'd terrorized her, manipulated her, broken her down piece by piece. but she'd also seen the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. The way his control had shattered when she'd finally admitted she wanted him. The way he'd held her through the night as if she were something precious, not just property. "I want to try," she whispered, "but I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more games, no more tests, no more parading women through here to make me jealous." Her voice strengthened. "If we're going to do this, it has to be real, honest, equal." "Equal?" He smiled slightly. "Seraphina, I'm a mafia boss. I don't do equal." "Then learn." She stood, forcing him to look up at her for once. "Because I'm not interested in being owned anymore. If you want me in your life, you get me as a partner, or you get nothing." Joon-woo stood slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. Then, shockingly, he bowed his head. "Partners," he agreed quietly. "I'll try. I can't promise I won't fail, but I'll try." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. But it was honest, and maybe that was enough. Seraphina took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "Okay," she said, "let's try." The weeks that followed were nothing like Seraphina expected. Joon-woo didn't transform into a different person overnight. He was still cold, still controlling, still dangerous. But he made efforts, small ones at first, then gradually larger. He started asking instead of commanding. Started including her in conversations instead of dismissing her. Started looking at her like she was someone who mattered, not just something he owned. He took her to the cafe to see her father. Marcus had cried, actually cried, when he saw her safe and whole. Joon-woo had waited in the car, giving them privacy, and when Seraphina emerged an hour later, he'd simply opened the door for her without a word. He bought her a camera, professional grade, the kind she'd dreamed about but never thought she'd afford. "You mentioned photography once," he'd said when she'd stared at him in shock. "I pay attention." He fired half his security team when she mentioned feeling uncomfortable with strange men watching her every move, replacing them with female guards who treated her with respect. He still had dark business to attend to, meetings she wasn't privy to, phone calls that made his voice go cold and deadly. But he never brought that darkness home to her. Never made her feel like she was part of that world unless she chose to be. And slowly, impossibly, Seraphina realized she was falling in love with him. Not the man who'd bought her, but the man he was trying to become. 3 months after she'd walked into his penthouse as payment for a debt, Joon-woo took her to the Han River at sunset. They walked along the banks in silence, her hand in his, watching the city lights begin to twinkle across the water. "I need to tell you something," he said finally. Seraphina's heart clenched. "That sounds ominous." "I'm leaving the business." She stopped walking, staring at him. "What?" "Not all of it, not the legitimate companies." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "But the illegal operations, the violence, the things that keep me awake at night, I'm done. I've already started the process of transferring control." "Why?" "Because I want to be worthy of you." His hands framed her face gently. "And I can't be that man while I'm still being the monster who bought you." Tears pricked Seraphina's eyes. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He kissed her forehead softly. "You asked me to be honest, to be equal. I can't be those things while I'm still living in darkness. That's your legacy, your empire. You're my legacy now." His thumbs brushed away the tears on her cheeks. "Everything else is just noise." Seraphina pulled him down, kissing him with every ounce of love she'd been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, she smiled against his lips. "I love you," she whispered. "I didn't want to, I tried not to, but I do." "I know." His smile was soft, real, completely unlike the cruel curves she'd first seen. "I've loved you since you vaulted over that counter to save your father. I just didn't know it yet." "What happens now?" "Now," he pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "Now we figure it out together. No games, no tests, just us." And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Seraphina felt truly, completely free. Not because the debt was erased, not because she could leave if she wanted, but because she chose to stay. A year later, Seraphina stood in an art gallery in Gangnam, her photographs lining the walls. Images of Seoul at night, the neon lights, the hidden alleyways, the contrast of ancient temples against modern skyscrapers. Each one told a story of darkness and light, of beauty in unexpected places. "You're brilliant, you know that?" Joon-woo appeared beside her, 2 champagne flutes in hand. "Every piece is stunning." "You're biased." "Extremely." He handed her a glass, his eyes warm as they traced her face, but also correct. The gallery was full of Seoul's elite, critics, collectors, people who'd paid serious money to attend her first solo show. But Seraphina only had eyes for him. He'd kept his promise, left the darkness behind, built something legitimate and clean, and he'd done it all while making sure she had space to build her own dreams. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, really seeing me." Joon-woo set down his glass, taking her hand. "Seraphina Cole, I've seen you since the moment you stepped between your father and a gun. Everything since then has just been me trying to be worthy of that courage." "You are worthy." "Because of you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Seraphina's breath caught. "You made me want to be better. You made me believe I could be better. And now I want to spend the rest of my life proving you right." He opened the box. Inside was a simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant, understated, perfect. "Marry me," he said. Not a question, not a command, an invitation. "Not because you owe me anything, not because I'm asking you to, but because you want to build a life with me, because you choose me the way I choose you every single day." Seraphina's hands trembled as she cupped his face. "You're really asking?" "I'm really asking." "Then yes." She kissed him, tasting champagne and promise and everything they'd fought through to get here. "Yes, I'll marry you. I choose you. I choose us." The gallery erupted in applause. Apparently their moment hadn't been as private as they thought, but neither of them cared. Joon-woo slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her close, kissing her like she was air and he'd been drowning. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "My Seraphina, my partner, my equal, my everything." "I love you too," she whispered back. "My impossible redemption, my second chance, my home." And in that moment, surrounded by her art and his love, and the life they'd built from the ashes of a debt paid, Seraphina finally understood. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best endings. Sometimes being bought leads to being cherished. And sometimes, the man who owns you becomes the man who frees you, by loving you enough to let you choose him back. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional, dramatic tales. Drop a comment below and let me know, what would you want to see in their married life? Should we do a sequel? Let me know. Until next time, keep believing in second chances and impossible love stories.